Hi everyone, Aurélie Cormier here, chiming in from Dieppe, New Brunswick, Canada, to give you some tips and tricks on how to build a grid on your layouts. Bits and pieces of information I've learned along the way since I started scrapbooking many moons ago. And it all comes down to three things. Step 1, color. Step 2, pattern. And step 3, can you guess what it is? Color and pattern placement on your layout. So that's about it. So just bear with me. We're going to change angles and we'll get started. Oh, and maybe I'll have a few other sprinkles of information in there just for fun. All right, bye. Okay, so before we start talking about grids and whatnot, I'm going to give you a bit of a tidbit that I often do when I'm shopping for supplies. So I'm going to show you what collection I used. It is the All About a Girl collection by Lori Whitlock from Echo Park. Beautiful collection. Lots of pinks, lots of purples. It kind of reminded me of my daughter when she was in kindergarten. For me, that's what it reminded me of. It can be used for all kinds of things. And for me, when I look at a collection, I'm like, okay, how can I use a collection in a totally different way that nobody would expect, right? So this, I had to think about this twice, but it totally worked. And the reason being is that I'm just gonna show you a little peek right here. Ta-da! So these are the pattern papers that I chose. But if you look at my pattern papers that I chose and you look at this, you see that this orange piece is not on this this collection pack thingamabob. So what happens is that oftentimes they can't fit everything on there and they have to choose like the pattern papers that kind of, that create like a cohesive look. But this one was the B-side for this rainbow paper. So take the time to really look at a collection to see what hidden gems are in there, and you'll be able to stretch your scrapbooking supplies even further. So I'm gonna show you what I did with this one. Ta-da! So you see, it has nothing to do about my daughter when she was in kindergarten. This is my son last summer when he turned 13. Imagine. Okay, so I love it. I love it when I can just stretch my product even further. It's awesome. Okay, so grids. So the first thing is color. So I have never used a color wheel in my life, ever, okay? They kind of freak me out, and Megan, Andrew might say, but it is what it is. I often stick to one collection at a time, or with experience, you kind of learn what works and what doesn't. But if you use one collection, everything is done for you. You don't have to think about it. Everything matches, so it's great. So for a grid, I often stick to uneven numbers, and most often than not, I usually choose 3 colors. So here you have the orange, the green, and the yellow. And then I always try to find a piece that has all of the colors that I chose, plus an accent color if that's the case. And in this case, it was the blue. This was I cut it out from a tag, and I really like the blue. It kind of reminded me of his t-shirt. So I have this plaid piece that has all of the colors in it. However, if you look at this piece here, you see how there's pinks and purples, and there's like a darker pink as well. So I just strategically cut my plaid pieces so that you could only see the colors that I had chosen in my layout. You can totally do that. And it totally changes the look of your pattern paper, which is awesome in some cases. So that's for color. Then my patterns that I choose. So if you look at my patterns, you have small scale, you have larger scale, and there's not one pattern that repeats. In the collection, there were pieces, you see here, there's this one as well, and I think there's a blue one as well that has like little specks like this. I could have totally chosen that as well if that's the look that I wanted, but I wanted like a layout that was a bit more energetic, like a 13-year-old can be, and so that's why I chose the stars were bolder, the plaid, the scale is much larger, and then these two are smaller scales but different patterns. So that's how I go about it. Then my photo, the color and the pattern placement. It's like playing, let me try to say this in English now, Sudoku. Sudoku? In French we say Sudoku. Anyway, so it's kind of like that in the sense that no color and no pattern touches horizontally I should say, or vertically. Okay, so if you look at my rows and my columns, it's all different patterns, all different colors. Okay, and that's how I put my grids together. Okay, easy peasy. It totally works. Every time that I do a grid, that's how I do it. Now, a little bit of extra advice. This is a square layout, a 12 by 12. So my squares in my grid are square as well. That's how I usually do it. If it was an 8.5 by 11 or a smaller scale layout in a portrait orientation, my grid pieces would be in a portrait orientation as well, more of a rectangular shape, because it would kind of follow the shape of the layout. Okay, so that's just a bit of extra information. Now, so I color and pattern placement. Now it's about, okay, it's done. Your grid is done on your page. Now what? Where do you put your picture? You can put your picture basically anywhere you want. For me, I usually put it to the right of the layout. I hadn't really thought about it. I think it's about eye movement. When I start looking at a layout, my eye kind of drifts from left to right automatically. Maybe it's like reading a book for me. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, so I put my picture there. That's the first thing I did. And then I built around it. Okay. If you notice, most of my embellishments are not in a straight line, but they're on the same row. Okay. Basically. Okay. And some embellishments, some colors that are repeated, they're in a triangular placement. Okay, so it kind of helps the eye to move along the page. And what else? Oh, and here, if you look at just around my son's face, the journaling here is the last piece I put on my layout, and it creates a triangle with the two other elements that were around the photo. Now, my daughter had an awesome idea, thanks Eloise, about stitching. I hand stitch on everything, and she's like, well, Mama, you need hand stitching. You need to stitch on there. So she said, you should stitch on those star pieces. And that's what I did. Here, you may think that it's a white piece of embroidery floss, but it's actually like off-white. And the reason being that the frame of the layout is as white as can be. So by choosing an off-white color, it just creates just a bit of contrast with the white that we see, which is why I chose that color. And it totally works. And I wanted to keep it simple and I didn't want to bulk my layout too much. So hand stitching or any kind of stitching, it creates a different texture without adding too much bulk to your layout. Another way of doing that is with stamping. On my layouts, most often than not, you'll always find the initials of the people in my photos. So these are my son's initials. And I chose, it's that gray color from Close to My Heart that I use. I wanted to kind of offset the background in the photo. So I chose this color, and then I create a visual triangle with the date, which I always stamp on my layouts. And here this was actually a heart trio that I just put, I inked the whole stamp, and then I wiped off the ink from the heart that I didn't want. And the reason being is that if I would had stamped that trio, I would have had 6 hearts on here. And I wanted an uneven number. So without that third one, I have 5 hearts. So then my heart was okay. I think that's it. So color pattern placement on your grid, then your photo placement, and little tips and tricks that you can use to elevate your grid with your photos and with your story. And another thing, a little PS here. If you count let's count the orange things that you see on my layout, not his hair. The photo doesn't count in this example, but so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Uneven. The green, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? And if you do that with the other colors, it's always uneven. And it just creates balance on the page, which is great. So I think that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. Easy peasy. And most of the products that you see were taken from this collection pack. There were pattern paper, there were stickers, and cut aparts. Okay, and I have some Lime Citron stamps, and this is a date stamp that I have, and that's it. Just a little bit of coordination, and you have yourself a layout. So I hope you'll try it for yourselves and have fun. All right, and grids are just a scrapbooker's delight, honestly. Okay, have a great day. Bye.